There are 9 things you only notice if your mind works differently than everyone else's. And if even 4 of these sound uncomfortably familiar, you belong to a group most people don't know exists, because you've spent your whole life assuming everyone else notices the same things you do. They don't. And that one gap, the one nobody ever explains to you, is the reason people have called you intense, cold, arrogant, or distant, when the truth was never any of those things. Stay until number 9. That one finally explains it. Most people move through a room reacting to what's said. You react to what's underneath what's said. That gap, small as it sounds, has been running quietly in the background of almost every relationship you've ever had, every job interview, every awkward silence you couldn't explain. 9 specific things happen inside your head that don't happen inside theirs. Let's go through them one by one, and by the end, you'll understand exactly why so many people have misread you your entire life. Number 1. Somebody tells you a story, confident, smooth, well-rehearsed, and one sentence quietly contradicts the one before it. You didn't go looking for it. It just surfaced, the way a wrong note surfaces in a song you know by heart. Maybe it's a coworker explaining why a deadline slipped, and the timeline they're describing doesn't quite line up with the one they gave you yesterday. Maybe it's smaller than that. A friend saying they're totally fine, in a tone that doesn't match the sentence at all. Psychologists describe this as heightened sensitivity to incongruence, an almost involuntary scan for pieces that don't fit the larger pattern. Here's the part that isn't obvious. It costs you socially. You ask one clarifying question, and suddenly you're the difficult one, while the person telling the story gets to keep their smooth narrative intact. Nobody claps for the person who noticed the crack in the wall. They just get quietly labeled paranoid, difficult, or worse, distrustful, when really you just can't unsee what's already been seen. Number 2, and this one explains a habit people have called antisocial for years. Small talk doesn't bore you, it floods you. Highly sensitive processors, the kind studied under what researchers call sensory processing sensitivity, take in more stimuli per exchange than the average brain does. Every tone shift, every pause, every micro-expression gets logged in real time, whether you want it logged or not. 10 minutes of, "How about this weather?" can cost you the same energy as an hour of something you actually care about. So when you excuse yourself early from a party, it was never about the people, it was bandwidth. Take a second here. If you've already recognized yourself twice, this next one usually lands even harder. 3rd on the list. Conversations don't end for you when the talking stops. Hours later, sometimes days, a detail resurfaces on its own. The way someone's voice caught for half a second, the compliment that wasn't quite a compliment. Your mind runs a second delayed pass over stored memory, a kind of elaborative processing most people's brains simply don't bother with once the moment has passed. For them, the conversation is closed the second they walk away. For you, it keeps quietly rendering in the background, sometimes for years. 4th, and this is where a lot of people start to feel genuinely seen. You feel a room change before anyone says a word. You walk in and something's off, and you couldn't point to a single sentence that proves it. Researchers call this emotional contagion, the automatic, largely unconscious absorption of the emotional state of the people around you. Most people need an announcement before they adjust their behavior. You need about 4 seconds in a closed door, and by the time everyone else catches up, you've already recalibrated twice. 5th, this one isn't about noticing a pattern exists. Everyone eventually notices that. It's that you can't stop connecting patterns across places that have nothing to do with each other. A negotiating tactic from work suddenly explains your neighbor's parenting style. A structure in a podcast you half listened to explains why an argument with your partner went sideways. Your brain treats every domain as raw material for every other domain, cross-referencing constantly, uninvited, whether it's useful in the moment or not. Most people file information where it belongs and leave it there. Yours refuses to stay filed. 6th, an open loop physically bothers you until it's closed. A half-finished argument, an email that never got a reply. For your mind, an unresolved thread isn't background noise. It's an alarm quietly going off in a drawer that won't shut all the way. And it doesn't switch off just because you'd like it to. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency to remember and fixate on incomplete tasks far more intensely than completed ones. Other people close the tab in their head and move on with their evening. You keep the tab open, sometimes without even realizing it's still running. Seventh, you can tell the difference between someone performing an emotion and someone actually feeling it, often before your conscious mind has caught up. A half-second delay, a smile that doesn't quite reach the right muscles. Your body reacts to the mismatch before you've even named what triggered it. This is sometimes called affect detection accuracy, and it comes with a specific cost. Being around someone who's performing is exhausting for you in a way it simply isn't for everyone else in the room, because you're the only one who can see the seams in the performance. If a number has already hit uncomfortably close, drop it in the comments right now, before you keep scrolling. I actually read every one. Eighth, you notice the exact moment someone is trying to narrow your choices before you've consciously registered it. A headline engineered to make you feel a certain way before you finish the first sentence. A request framed so that saying no feels rude, even though nothing about the situation actually changed. Something in you pushes back automatically before you've put words to what's happening. That reflex has a name: psychological reactance. The instinct to resist the moment you sense your options are quietly being reduced for someone else's benefit. And ninth, the one that ties every other one on this list together and finally explains the misunderstanding you've been carrying for years. Here's what's actually happening every time someone calls you intense, cold, arrogant, or distant. It was never your personality. It was bandwidth mismatch. While they're processing one layer of a conversation, the words, you're simultaneously processing 8. The words, the contradiction underneath them, the mood in the room, the thing left unsaid, the performance versus the feeling, the pattern connecting it to something unrelated, the open loop from an hour ago, and the narrowing of your own choices happening in real time. All 9 things on this list are running at once, constantly, without your permission. So when you pause half a second longer before answering, that's not coldness. It's 8 extra processes finishing before your mouth catches up. When you seem unreadable in a room full of people laughing easily, it's not arrogance. It's you running on a different clock, in what researchers studying flow describe as a state where deep focus reshapes the felt passage of time itself. People weren't wrong that something about you felt different. They were just wrong about what that difference meant. Here's what nobody tells you about all 9 of these. None of them make you better than anyone else in the room. What they mean is that your mind is running more processes in the background without asking your permission, all day, every day, and almost nobody around you has ever had the vocabulary to describe what they were actually watching. They just saw the output, the pause, the unreadable expression, the question that felt one layer too deep for the room. They never saw the 9 processes underneath producing it, so they filled in the gap with the explanation that made the most sense to them, and it was usually the wrong one. That's not a flaw to manage. It's a setting most people don't have access to, and now you finally know its name. So if 4 or more of these felt like someone quietly describing your own head back to you, drop the number in the comments right now, before you forget. And if you want more of this, the kind of thing that explains you instead of just entertaining you, subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel does. One uncomfortably accurate video at a time.